In this episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the MCU universe, Tom Fox and Megan Dougherty review Spider-Man Homecoming. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special live recording of Popcorn and Compliance, the MCU universe. We are back with our continuing challenge, which is to review the entire MCU. Why? Well, number one, it's there. Two, along with my co-host Megan Dougherty. We're both MCU Uber fans and Uber geeks. So we're going to continue our exploration in chronological order and not by release date. Today we are continuing with Spider-Man Homecoming. So I'm Tom Fox, the founder of the Compliance Podcast Network and the voice of compliance.
And I'm Megan Dougherty, co-founder of One Stone Creative and host of the business podcast Blueprint Show. And I was pretty excited to watch Spider-Man Homecoming. Tom, I hadn't seen any of the kind of Spider-Man movies in the MCU universe. I hadn't been a big Spider-Man fan since I was, in grade 4, I think. I do have a good story about that, though. So what did you think of this new Tom Holland, Peter Parker, Spider-Man iteration?
Well, I absolutely loved it. Tom Holland is great, although I thought Tobey Maguire was great. I hate watching movies about teen angst because then I have to think about all the teen angst I had. And he's got a lot of teen angst. Girls, himself, he doesn't have parents, so he's got Aunt May. He's got his friends. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do, where he wants to go to college. He's trying to keep good grades. Just a lot of stuff going on. The movie was great. The action was great. The scenes were great. The Washington Monument was great. The interplay between he and Liz, his putative girlfriend, were great. MJ was great.
I liked MJ a lot in this.
Liked MJ a lot. Yeah. So it was just a ton of fun. And even with Andrew Garfield was also played Spider-Man, and I enjoyed him as well. One of the difficulties that I think they really handled well was the story is so well known about how he becomes Spider-Man. And you mentioned the fourth grade. Well, I can remember the 60s cartoon series, and we all watched that, and probably can still sing the theme song.
Oh, but yeah, he's got radioactive blood.
He's got radioactive blood. But the fight scenes he has with the bullies at school, they're all pretty well-known tropes in the Spider-Man backstory, and we really didn't have to go through all of that here. We didn't have to go through the death of his uncle, which is always a pretty poignant moment in any Spider-Man movie or comic book. So I thought they were able to handle that. Kind of dropped him mid universe into the MCU. So, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, the first was a lovely hit of nostalgia, because I didn't catch the original run of the 1960s Spider-Man, of course, but when I was in grade 4 or 5, after school, if my dad got home from work soon enough, we could catch a double feature at 5 o'clock of the 1960s Spider-Man, then the Adam West 1960s Batman, and we would do that every day he could get home in time before dinner. So, I thought they really captured, especially some of the way Spider-Man moved. Really kind of it hit me like that old animation style, and the way he would land on things and just the type of web slinging he was doing. So I loved that, and it just made me feel good. And the very opening, did you catch that redo of the theme song that they did? It sounded so good, updated like that. So that made me super happy. And as a teenage superhero, I like that they made him kind of goofy and dorky and unsure, but ultimately just trying to find his way, because often you get teenage superheroes and they're way too mature and they're way too competent, and they're just grimdark. And I thought I liked the lighthearted goofiness of Peter Parker, who really wants to do a good job. He's just not quite sure about what to do a good job for, or why, or who to impress. I thought it was lovely. Another great villain in this movie, the Vulture, you know, who had such a sympathetic origin story, like so many of the villains in the MCU. You know, contractor gets a good government job, government comes in and just stomps on his business, completely ruining him. That's a really relatable thing, and you know how he got into a life of petty crime was totally understandable. Of course, he got much more evil, but I like the ambiguity around the villain. And of course, his relationship with Tony Stark. My heart. My heart.
So I have to say I had some ambivalence about that because it's clear, Tony wants to do this. He feels like he needs to do it, but he also has no clue how to do it.
Like be a mentor,
Yeah.
kind of dad figure. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the dialogue I thought where Tony plays clearly, I don't want to say an adult, but someone older than Peter Parker, but it's the same sort of witty repartee that he tries to lay on him. And sometimes I don't think Peter Parker or a teenager would really understand what he was saying or why he was doing, like why he took the suit away, why, if he was given the suit, couldn't he try to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, if not a superhero, with particularly around the action on the Staten Island ferry.
Mhm.
And, maybe it's Tony has the bigger picture in mind and Spider-Man really doesn't. But really, I was kind of ambivalent on all that. It's Tony's trying, he just doesn't have a clue. And so
Well, he
that
gets
whole
happy to
dynamic is
take on a lot of the day-to-day management of Spider-Man, right? Like he doesn't merit a lot of Tony Stark's attention. He gets the assistant's attention.
right. And Happy really wants to have nothing to do with him. And so that's another point of frustration for Peter Parker.
Mhm. Because he said, I
Um,
mean, he said he was like a 15-year-old boy, right? And I remember, I think being in middle school, and my uncle told me, Megan, there is no creature on Earth more unpleasant and disgusting than a 15-year-old boy. And looking back, maybe as a 12-year-old girl, that might have been true. But like looking back, oh, he's so well-meaning. He's trying so hard. He wants to be good, but he's a 15-year-old boy, and as Aunt May says, he smells bad sometimes. He's just gotta be where he's at.
it's like when my daughter was 13 and broke up with her 14-year-old boyfriend because he was, quote, emotionally immature. My response was, honey, he's 14. He has peaked. It don't get no better than that for boys. And she didn't quite grasp what I was trying to tell her. Nevertheless, I think you're onto something. The other thing that took me a while to get used to, I've come around because she's such a great actress, is Aunt May. Because in every other iteration, Aunt May is much more matronly. Aunt May is not hot. And if there's one thing Marisa Tomei is, it is hot. And she's been hot for a long time. I don't know how old she is now, but she is still hot. They make reference to her hotness uh, throughout this series. But she's a great actress, so she pulls it off with a plum. And so that's an interesting kind of change as well.
Yeah, and I think I guess I mean I agree. I think it was great they didn't go deep into the backstory of how he got the spider bite and the death of Uncle Ben. I liked Aunt May. I liked that she was a little bit younger and a little more relatable to Peter and his friends. And I don't know, maybe Aunt stuff is hitting me hard. This is some news. I just found out I'm going to be Aunt this fall, thrice over. So anything about ants, I'm very into right now. But I like the way she was able to kind of meet Peter at his level, and of course the end reveal where she catches him putting on the outfit is just like, what? No, was not having a teenage boy in my house that I'm responsible for enough. What do I have to deal with now? Was, I just think, a great way to frame that.
Right. So, the action, and once again, was fabulous. The flying scenes with the villain were great. Stark Tower, I
Mhm.
mentioned the Washington Monument. I mean, I got queasy watching that scene. One, where he climbs up the Washington Monument. Two, when he gets to the top and he looks over, I had to look away just from that. It was just really well done. When the helicopter flies up next to it, I assume obviously they had to get permission to do that, but it was really well done and just action packed kind of throughout.
I didn't actually know that the Washington Monument, you could go inside of it. I thought it was just the big pole. I didn't realize how big it was. I didn't
Now,
know it was a tourist attraction that you could actually ride up and down like the Statue of Liberty.
you Canadians have led such a sheltered life. So sheltered.
I thought it was a big stick in the ground. Okay.
That too, that too. But there was even a nod to when I think MJ asked, "Was it built with slave labor?" And the park ranger kind of, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was.
yeah. So I thought that was a nice touch I had not seen before. Well, were there any Easter eggs in this that you particularly liked, Megan?
I had a couple of them. I think my absolute favorite of all of them was the Captain America school videos that they are watching in the gym and in detention. And I watch them and like they're funny and they're just exactly the right tone. But can you imagine how much the other Avengers must have ragged him on that for? Oh, absolutely brutal. And one little one I thought was great, and this was towards the end when Happy is getting the plane loaded up right before the final in-air boss fight scene. And Happy's talking about the things that they're packing up, and there was the R&D, the new tech that they were developing for Thor, but also Captain America, even though they were in a fight. And I thought that was great. So even though the Avengers are currently split when this is taking place, Iron Man is still making sure that everyone is going to have the latest tech when they inevitably get back together. So I loved that. And let's see, I just a little shout out to Ned the best friend. Was I think as a generally behind the scenes person who worked behind the scenes of podcasting, a lot of things like that desire to be the guy in the chair, pulling the strings, making it happen. When he finally got that at the end, guy in the chair, that I felt that in my soul. He's a great best friend, super friendly, and so supportive. What about some of you? Did you have good cookies that you liked?
Well, one of them was prior to the movie. There was an announcement that one of my favorite actresses, Jennifer Connelly, was going to
Yes.
be in the movie. Well, her role was very different than what I had expected, but because her role was the call a girl or woman or an AI called Karen, but she was the AI assistant to Peter
Mhm.
once he gets the upgraded suit. So I thought that was pretty cool. I heartily agree with you on the Captain American videos. They were so over the top and they were so ham fisted and they were absolutely, Cap. That's exactly how he is, and that's exactly how he talks. The Stan Lee
Mhm.
cameo was very cool. The tech in this, you saw the upgrades of Peter's suit, and we saw, I think, what was one reference to the Iron Spider that we'll see probably down the road. But he had some really cool upgrades to his suit, particularly that we explored when he was inside the vault in Baltimore, I think. But when he was outside Washington chasing the vulture,
Mhm.
the vulture was extremely cool. I don't know why, but I had forgotten that that character was Liz's dad, and
It was a great
so
twist. Really
yeah,
good twist.
that
Totally
that
caught me
really
by
was.
surprise.
That really was. And but we saw his humanity because when he drops him off and he says he's going to give him the dad talk, he says, "I'll give you a pass on this one, kid, because you took
Mhm.
my daughter to her prom. So show her a good time and leave me alone and we'll be square." Of course, we knew that wasn't going to happen, but I thought that was a really nice twist that showing that the vulture was basically a decent human, even if he had been turned into this life of crime because of the evil government and evil Tony Stark. The damaged Stark Tower
Mhm.
really wasn't a cookie or an Easter egg. It was, a part of the show, but that was very cool to see that after the Battle of New York. Ned beating up one of the bad guys, I thought was pretty cool as well. And then the scene at the homecoming where he goes in the library to use the computers and the teacher comes in and asks him what he's doing and he's like watching porn. It's like, yeah, Lots of ruck with that in a public library, kid. They have things called filters for that. But nevertheless, it was a great line because that's what you would expect a teenage boy to be doing in the dark.
Yeah, and he's just like, what is going to be plausible and also make her not look at my screens?
So true, so true. This this movie, the other thing I thought, it's really not a cookie, Megan, but in terms of I hit upon the other actors who played Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Both of those had standalone series. Toby had a
Mhm.
3-movie deal or 3-movie package of Spider-Man, and Andrew had 2. And so where I was really intrigued, and I thought they pulled it off well, how they kind of dropped into the middle of the Spider-Man story. So we didn't have to go through the whole origin story again, and picked it up in a way that added some nuance, added some depth and breadth and scope, but also made it fresh and new. And the
Mhm.
other thing I would have to say about Tom Holland, I think he was an amateur gymnast
Yep.
before he became an actor, and that it shows. And he can do moves and make spins and leaps that the normal human being can't, even with computer generated animation. And so that brings a whole new level of
Mhm.
physicality um, to this performance. It's not in terms of dance, but it's really in terms of gymnastics, the spins he does and the things he does. And so I thought that was a really underappreciated part of his performance as well.
No, I'd agree, and I think the only thing I'd add to that is just the ongoing relationship between, Tony Stark and Peter Parker. They're both really flailing, they're kind of reaching out to have this kind of connection. They both feel a lack in their lives, I think, and they can't quite identify it, and they can't quite be open about what they're looking for in each other, but they're finding it, and it's delightful. And I think some of their off-screen interviews together too, hilarious. The chemistry is real.
So what did you think of the end when Tony invites him to join the Avengers, to move upstate to New York, offers him the hypertech suit, and then Peter Parker's response?
I thought that was great. I thought, it was, I liked it on a couple of reasons. I mean, I like that Peter said no, and he's like, "No, I've actually gotta do this, maybe graduating high school thing, having a life, being with my friends, being with my family." And I like that Tony Stark accepted that, and totally was like, "Oh, yeah, you were right. This was a test. It was not real, and you've just passed. Good job. Go have a good life," even though it was 100% real, and he completely expected Peter Parker to drop everything and become an Avenger. I thought it was a nice little bit of character growth for both of them. They were both becoming a little bit more adult, and Tony realized right away that Peter was making a better choice for his own life, uh, even if he would immediately get in trouble with Pepper. So I really liked it. What about you?
So actually, I went a little bit different direction because I agree with everything you said, but I thought it was almost an homage to the origins of Spider-Man as not Avenger superhero, but your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And that he said, Brooklyn needs me, and
Brooklyn needs me.
that he was going to go back and protect his home. So I really appreciated from that, but I have to agree with everything you said, and certainly a moment of growth for Peter Parker, which led to the next scene, which it's like, oh yeah, I've been carrying this around for a while. What had Happy been carrying around for a while that Tony whips out to Pepper?
I mean, it's maybe not every woman's dream engagement. I think deep down she has a strong respect for a good PR play. That is possibly the most important consideration.
Well done, well done. So Tony, there's a press conference set up to announce Peter Parker joining the Spider-Man joining the Avengers. That bit of news doesn't come to pass. So he proposes to Pepper instead, and I guess they go off to announce their engagement.
Mhm. Very good times. Well, I think this was a winner. It was another one of those ones I didn't expect to like nearly as much as I did, I didn't love the last two kind of reboots of Spider-Man, not nearly as much as I love like the 1960s cartoon, which was phenomenal. But maybe I just like Tom Holland, and I like the kind of quippy banter that he does so well. But I thought this was a great movie. I am invested enough in the characters. I'm looking forward to the next ones. And obviously kind of what they're setting up here for the end of MCU phase 1, which we'll be getting to in a little while, Infinity War's Endgame. I like these people enough to really care what's going to happen to them.
So I'd like to say a few words about MJ.
Please do.
Because I found her very intriguing. In the comic books and the cartoon, in the first two iterations of Spider-Man, MJ is the love interest, or crush interest probably would be the better way to phrase it. Liz plays that in this movie. MJ is played by Zendaya, I think is her name. And I think she's a singer or actress. Nevertheless, I thought it was an inspired choice. And great. I'm not sure if she was acting or that's the way she is, but it doesn't matter because it was a great role. And she really stands apart and above everyone else. Part of it, I think, is by choice. Part of it, I think, is by her. She must have a 200 IQ, just smarter than everyone else. And literally, she says more dialogue in raising an eyebrow than most 30-year actors can do. It was really amazing what she could do in the few scenes she was in, and I think she takes over that love interest, crush interest role in the next iterations of Spider-Man with this version of Peter Parker. But I really enjoyed her role. She really blossomed throughout the movie. So I wanted to say a few words about MJ as well.
I love that she had that kind of, the sort of the black and white morality that so often comes with being a 15-year-old, but backed up by like good research and really, really intelligent, as you say. And I love that they're setting it up to be a relationship that's based out of friendship rather than, just teenage infatuation. I think that's going to make it a much more satisfying story to unfold.
Well, Megan, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode, but I hope our listeners will join us again. I'm Tom Fox, the voice of compliance.
And I'm Megan Dougherty, and I look forward to meeting you next time when we are talking about Doctor Strange, Tom, which I think is one of your favorites of all time.
Yes.
Till then.
This is Tom Fox again. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I hope you will join Megan and I next time where we take a look at one of my personal favorites, Doctor Strange.